And welcome back. Welcome in. Good evening. Thank you all for tuning in. I am your host, your gracious and ever loyal host, Robert at Fantasy Force FB on Twitter, with my handsome and I don't have any other good adjectives for him, but my other co-host Billy at Getting Bills. Bill, how's your week going so far, buddy? It's been a bit. We haven't kept too much in touch, but you know, I hope your week's going well and you're staying safe. Spiking COVID cases now.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. It's been a pretty busy week for me. Um, just joined a MMA prediction competition that's kind of like set up like a reality TV show, like The Challenge, Big Brother, Survivor, and stuff like that. So I've been on there. Shouts to Mr. Arkansas. So basically, it's like 16 people in a player pool, and like week to week, you have to pick MMA fights, each fight on the card. So you can't pass on a fight, and you have to pick a fighter and how they're going to win either by decision, KO, or submission. And at the end of the week, 3 people get put up on the voting block, and people vote to get them out. So it's like a social media experience type of game. So it's a pretty good honor to be in it. And I'm going up against a dude named USC Bropick, so I'm gonna take the dub this week. But that's really what I've been up to recently. I texted you, I was doing some tape studying before we came on here. But NFL season wise, man, had my best cash game week last week for DFS. So hopefully I can keep it out, ride it hot. I always feel like I have a better week when we have Detroit Dynasty on. So hopefully me and you can repeat the same type of success. How about you? How's your week been going?
For sure. He's here in spirit. He's here in comments. Hey, good evening, boys. Thanks for tuning in. One of our most loyal listeners and guests at the same time, Detroit Beastie. But yeah, I mean, he adds an extra sort of oomph to the show, especially in the DFS content. Like, obviously, DFS, but he knows it a lot more than I do, so it's like an actual DFS conversation that can be had. So whereas like, you and me, like we could have a conversation, but it would be mostly you leading the conversation. So yeah, I think he definitely helps out in that regard. But yeah, I mean, as far as me, I had probably my worst weekend of fantasy football. I lost in a ton of dynasty leagues. I lost in most of my redraft leagues. However, I'm still like in a decent position, so I'm not really stressing about it, and I'm still trying to make the moves for the long term, which is really what you should be doing at this point in time. I mean, everyone kind of knows it, but if you're competing, you should be looking to, further yourself and help yourself compete down the road, things of that nature. Real quick before we get into the actual podcast, the content, the fantasy content, we have a nice quick question for you. As always, you can drop your questions if you have them on Twitter, on YouTube. We are live, and we are open to comments for start sits, for whatever trade questions you may have. But if you have questions, feel free to drop them. And as always, you can find us on Twitter at Dynasty Force Pod, and you can find us on YouTube at Dynasty Force Podcast. Bill, you mentioned the sort of reality series that you're in. What kind of are you pumping that out on Twitter? Are you showing everyone? Like, are you going to be interactive? Things of that, or what else are you going to be showcasing on your Twitter, and why should the people follow you?
The people should follow me because it's a pretty interactive community that I'm a part of. You know how we are for fantasy and also for MMA and stuff like that. So definitely, if you're looking for some content and stuff, you can head over to PSR and watch some live streams. If you're watching we have like a betting live stream for NFL and MMA, and we have some guys over there that post videos for NCAA football, NFL betting type stuff. So if you're just looking to become like a better in general, make sure you definitely head over there. And then DFS also for me, Friday videos. Yeah, that's really what I have going on. How about you?
At Getting Bills for Billy, at Fantasy Force FB for me. I should finish my weekly matchup breakdown tonight if I'm lucky. At the very least, it would be done tomorrow, so it should be up and posted then. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have much else going on, but you could still follow me. You could still hit me with questions in my DMs, or just at me. Do whatever you want. I'll answer them regardless. And I am still like retweeting a lot of content that's not necessarily mine, but I'm still happy to kind of put that out there. Like, you know, I just want to be someone where you can kind of follow me and get a range of different opinions within the fantasy world, even if they're not necessarily mine. So anything helps. I'm not always correct all the time, I'll admit it. So, maybe if I I can retweet stuff that's going to be right, maybe even if I don't agree with it. So there's always that chance. All right, Bill, I'll start with you for a quick question, if it would go. Oh, looks as though. All right, there. Who's someone you're buying in fantasy right now? It could be redraft, it could be dynasty, whatever floats your boat. But this is really the time for trades. Trade deadlines are coming up. A lot of people are trying to make that playoff push. So who is someone that you currently are either right now or recently have traded for or are trying to trade for?
To be honest with you, it's that time of year where you really need to start thinking about playoff schedules and stuff like that. And a guy that I'm looking to acquire is DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions. He's been used a little bit more, but I think the Lions, because of the COVID situation that they had last week, and then this week they play Washington, I think that Swift isn't going to have that good of an amount of games this next 2 weeks. So his value is going to suppress a little bit. But if you look at his playoff schedule is very nice. He has one of the best playoff schedules for running backs this year. He plays Green Bay, Tennessee, and then Tampa Bay. So I kind of like targeting DeAndre Swift. You probably won't have to pay a big price for him in redraft leagues rather than like a dynasty league. So if I'm in a redraft league, I'm looking for a not a high trade target, you know what I'm saying, where you have to pay up a lot. But I feel like if you're talking to a DeAndre Swift owner that isn't even playing him as like he's using him as a flex or something like that in the ESPN league, I would hit him up and be like, yo, I know you don't want this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
You're scared of AP. That's the kind of way I look at things. How about you, Rob?
Right. I have DeAndre Swift, by the way. I have him in a redraft league, and he is sort of like my flex right now because I also have Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders. But my mindset is kind of like DeAndre Swift starts hitting, with those two running backs that I have, and they're healthy. It's going to be really tough to beat me in the playoffs. And I have faith in Swift. He's the best running back on that team. And, I think they've already realized it, kind of given him a bigger role. And I think that role, honestly, is only going to expand from here. So I like the DeAndre Swift take. For me personally, I'll give you a name of a guy who I think you should buy. He's not someone I'm actively buying, but I'm also going to give you 2 trades that I actually made today. I made 2 trades today, actually with the same person, so it's pretty interesting. Different leagues, though. So the player that I would recommend buying right now is Jonathan Taylor. running back for the Indianapolis Colts. And the only reason I'm going to recommend him is because his price is going to be dog shit right now. Like, people do not want Jonathan Taylor because who knows what's up with Jonathan Taylor. If his price was higher than, I don't know, sort of like a low-end flex right now, maybe like another throw-in piece. If his price was much higher than that, I probably wouldn't be buying because he's very, very risky. He's someone that you can buy very low right now. But you look at the upcoming schedule for the Colts. It's really I'm going to look it up real quick because it's really fantastic. The one problem I would say is that they play Pittsburgh in Week 16. That's a week you're not going to want to play Jonathan Taylor. They have the Tennessee Titans this week. They are the 9th best matchup for running backs. Then they play the Green Bay Packers, who are one of the top 5 best matchups. Titans again. Then the Texans, who are another top 5 best matchup. Raiders, another top 5 matchup. And then the Texans again. So the worst matchup over the next 5 weeks, the next 5 weeks for Jonathan Taylor is the 9th best matchup for running backs. So he has a very easy schedule coming up. Jonathan Taylor and Jordan Wilkins is a guy, too, to look out for. If he's on your waiver wires, I'd be picking him up because, like I said, we don't really know what's up with Jonathan Taylor. So if you could pick up Jordan Wilkins off the waivers and you can trade for Jonathan Taylor, trade for him very low, I think you'll be in a solid position for these next upcoming weeks. Like I said, you might have to figure out what you're doing in the championship game, but from there, hopefully you'll be in a better position. It's about getting to the championship. Most importantly, you got to get to the championship to win it. So those are the sort of moves that I would be making. Today in my one redraft league, where I am a competing team, in that league we do top 3 in the division make the playoffs, and I'm very close to clinching my spot in the playoffs. I think if I win this week, and I should in theory have an easier win, if my the person beneath me loses who has a tough matchup, then I should clinch. So, fingers crossed, but at this point I should clinch this week. I just went and traded Josh Jacobs and T. Higgins to a struggling roster for Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is not a guy that, is going to... I don't even know when Austin Eckler is going to come back. I think it might be 2 or 3 more weeks, but I think he should be back in time for the fantasy playoffs. And you look at the way that Justin Jackson's playing right now for Los Angeles, the way that Justin Herbert is playing, and the talent of Austin Eckler we can't forget. I really think Austin Eckler can come back and be a really great running back. I didn't really take a look at the Chargers playoff schedule in doing this. My point of view for it was mostly it's Austin Eckler. He's a great running back. Looking ahead to his playoff schedule, or rest of season, we'll say, Dolphins this week, Jets, Bills, Patriots, Falcons, Raiders, and Broncos in the playoffs. Falcons aren't the best matchup, but the Raiders and Broncos, the Broncos aren't at all. They're very good against the run. But Austin Eckler has a huge role in the passing game too, so I don't know. It's not like I'm actively saying go buy Austin Eckler, but for me that price was good enough. I like the little upgrade from Chubb to Jacobs too, which I feel like is an upgrade because Chubb is healthy now. And then the final trade, this one was a Dynasty trade where I moved I moved James Conner and a second-round pick, which is actually Billy's second-round pick, funny enough. Mm-hmm. But Conner in a second, which should be a high second, in return for Myles Gaskin in a second in 2022, which at this rate looks like a lower second. But I just feel like the long-term value of, I have 3 great running backs on that roster already. And I feel like Gaskin has a better chance to hold on to the job long term better chance than James Conner, because Conner is a free agent after this season. Gaskin isn't. There's always the chance that Miami drafts another running back. But Gaskin's a solid option, and they may choose to spend that excessive amount of draft capital that they have on just improving the team around Tua, maybe get him more offensive linemen, great wide receiver, things of that nature. Bill, how do you feel about the 3 names that I brought up as buying, which were Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, technically Nick Chubb too, but more so for the Austin Eckler upside, and then was the one I just named? Oh, Myles Gaskin.
I'm not really the type of guy that likes to trade
And the last
for
one
injured
being a
running
dynasty.
backs. I'm not the type of guy that really likes to trade for injured running backs because a lot of a murky situation. But that's more of a regard about Austin Eckler. But with Jonathan Taylor, I can kind of see the upside. He has a really nice schedule for the playoffs, and that's what it's really all about. And you know how the rookies can propel you at the end of the season for playoffs.
Definitely.
But I don't know, man. That's not really my type of cup of tea this year. I feel like if you're trading for stuff right now, I feel like you should trade for some wide receivers that can give you a safe floor from week to week, and you don't have to worry about the wide receiver position because each week, no matter what you do at the running back position, you can be a guy that has a high draft capital or something like that. If they don't have a good matchup, they don't have a good matchup, and it's a roulette every week of what running backs are going to score the touchdowns or not, rather than just picking a wide receiver that has a safe floor. So I'm more in the camp of trading for wide receivers over running backs. That's just me.
I definitely understand your point. I don't know. I honestly wasn't necessarily looking to buy Eckler. It was more for Chubb, but then I noticed he had Eckler. I just started thinking about it, and I found myself wanting it. It's not even like I was hoping to get Eckler, and his playoff schedule is not something that you should look at and be like, oh, I gotta buy him, But the hope, the upside, I have on that team Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, and Austin Eckler. I also have Kenyon Drake too. So I mean, I have depth at the running back position on that team, even though Drake is hurt and bad. But regardless, I have some hope for upside at the running back position. So I definitely feel that. I think we had a good talk though, regardless of your disagreements. But I respect your opinion. You've always been a kind of less trustworthy of running back sort of guy anyway. So I completely understand that. All right, let's hit this news real quick over the past weekend and get into the main event. Let's start with Christian McCaffrey. I wrote this yesterday. He has a shoulder injury that is putting his Week 10 status in doubt. He has essentially been ruled out for Week 10. Plus, they're calling him week to week. They don't really know his long-term status. So, Bill, what do you have any? He's not done for the season. They've kind of said that already. But what are your thoughts here with McCaffrey? It really sucks with McCaffrey.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate because McCaffrey still ranks pretty high for points per game at the running back position. He looked pretty electric last week. But I think it's Mike Davis time. Hopefully you didn't drop him or trade him. I'm projecting, as of right now, today's Wednesday night, 6:30 East Coast time. And I'm projecting Mike Davis to get the starting job, and I'll probably have a lot of him in DFS.
I know they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week, one of the best run defenses in football, which is kind of scary. But if you're looking long term here, week after they play the Detroit Lions, it's a great matchup for Mike Davis, should he be the starter. And then the Minnesota Vikings, which is another pretty solid matchup. Maybe beyond that, McCaffrey comes back when they play the Broncos. really don't have a real timeline here for McCaffrey, but if you own McCaffrey, especially if you own Mike Davis, you'll be fine. Like you're just gonna play Mike Davis. He's definitely not gonna give you, McCaffrey numbers, because McCaffrey came back for 1 week and put up almost 40 for you, depending on your scoring format. But that's McCaffrey, and then Mike Davis he'll be pretty good, but he won't be the 40-point machine that McCaffrey always figures out a way to be. I mean, we'll try and keep you up to date with this one. I personally think he'll be out at least 2 weeks. They've been cautious with him this season. They kept him out the extended period of time for the high ankle sprain to make sure he got back right, and he did look good. So I think they'll do the same with this injury.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that one as well, Rob.
Kenyon Drake, he remains day-to-day with his ankle injury. Monitor his practices for his Week 10 status. I believe he got in a limited practice today. Do you think Kenyon Drake plays this week against Buffalo? And if he is, would you play him?
Technically, I don't know, man.
Technically, he's had 2 weeks of rest because they had a bye week, and he didn't play last week.
To be honest with you, you can't ask me on a Wednesday if I think somebody's playing or not. I would have to look at practice reports later into the week, because this is still the time period where the veterans are sitting on the sidelines and stuff during practice and stuff like that. So I don't really make too much of anything about it.
If I really had to guess, I would probably say Drake is held out this week and then comes back next week.
Yeah, but you never know, man. He gets a Friday practice and he's playing this week.
But we won't really know that answer until Friday.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because last week with Drake being out, it was fire up your Edmonds, and then Edmonds kind of came out and did the exact same thing that Kenyon Drake did, which is it's just funny in the sense of like, people were kind of harping on, oh, it's a Kenyon Drake issue. Chase Edmonds looks fantastic, but no, I really think it's a first and second down running issue where, like, third down something changes, but the usage, they also don't involve their main running back in the passing game a lot. It's funky in Arizona, but I think last week also kind of went to prove that Chase Edmonds, it's not that he's like so much better than Kenyon Drake, it's just the usage is kind of off, and maybe they're about the same talent regardless. So kind of gives you some worry for the long term, but we'll have to see how it might work out once Drake comes back. Moving on here, Kyle Allen is going to undergo season-ending surgery. He had a dislocated ankle. I wasn't watching that game. Were you watching, Bill?
Yeah, I actually was watching it on Red Zone. It was coming up from time to time. It was a pretty gruesome injury. It was like really bad. All prayers to Kyle Allen. From a personal aspect, excited to see Alex Smith in there.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't see the injury. I wasn't watching the game, and I really don't like to watch these injuries on purpose. Like, just kind of, I don't handle these sort of gruesome injuries well. So, yeah, I didn't go back and watch it, but I will take your word for it. And, similar recovery seems like to Dak. I've heard it's not as bad because he doesn't have a fracture. It's like a clean dislocation, but it should still end his season regardless. As far as Alex Smith, I did see the end of this game, and Alex Smith was kind of, I don't know, I saw him give the game to the Giants with his turnovers, but at the same time, I saw him like trying and like actually having confidence in his throws. So if he can step in and, have that confidence coming up in the future here for Washington, I actually like their offense a little bit better. Terry McLaurin stock up. J.D. McKissick becomes a very viable option. And, Bill, you've been hyping up Logan Thomas. way too long for him to, be ignored here now if Alex Smith comes in and performs well. And I have so many shares of Alex Smith in Dynasty that my Dynasty teams are now happy because they can either A, sell Alex Smith for anything, and then, or, potentially have a third quarterback who's worth starting on certain matchup weeks. So, all right, moving on here. Nick Chubb. I mentioned that I traded for him. He's going to practice this week. He looks like he's going to play in week 10. Bill, I'll run this by you. The Kareem Hunt situation, Kareem Hunt was expected to be like a certified top 5 guy when Nick Chubb went down. And that didn't happen. Kareem Hunt, actually, I can look up the exact finish he's had, but Kareem Hunt did not perform the way that a lot of people would expect or hope for him to perform in the weeks without Nick Chubb. So I believe Nick Chubb went down week 4. So I'm going to say weeks 4 through 9. Kareem Hunt was a running back 12, which is solid. He's not bad. But at the same time, like I said, top 5 sort of seen upside there for Kareem Hunt when Nick Chubb wasn't there. Do you think, because Kareem Hunt before that, I can look this up too to be exact, but Kareem Hunt before that was, really, really good for fantasy. Small sample size, but actually I lied. He was the running back 13, but he actually averaged a few points more. So, I mean, do you feel any sort of way towards Kareem Hunt? Worse, better?
Obviously this is gonna take a stock down to his fantasy value here, but you got a better price for what you paid for because you got basically like a low end RB1 for a majority of the season here. So I feel like you can't really complain.
Yeah, for sure. And he was like a 6th round pick in a lot of leagues. So for sure. I traded Kareem Hunt in a rebuilding league. I traded him in a 3rd to get back Antonio Gibson in a 1st. And especially with the way that Kareem Hunt, wasn't the smash play that we thought he might be. I'm pretty happy with the trade that I made, especially for my long-term future. All right, moving on. Oh, not moving on there because news are done. So let's head into the main event here, which is us looking ahead to week 10. Next week's week 10. Week 10, double digits now. Bill, you always go first here with the hypes, so I'm going to go first today. I'll take it off your hands, no problem. I'm going to hit the very obvious one first. I had to take it. It was just too good to pass up. But Jared Goff here at the quarterback position. They play Seattle, who's dead last against the quarterback position. Their defense has been terrible. That's been well known. The Rams' defense is pretty good, but Seattle's offense is just it's a top 3 offense in football. No matter what, the Rams are going to have to try to keep up in this one. They're going to have to try and score on Seattle. Jared Goff and the Rams offense can easily do that. How do you feel about the Rams offense as a whole this week, Bill?
Yeah, I really do like the Rams offense. Everything here makes sense and checks out right. For DFS this week, I think Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are going to be some of the more popular plays. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
I think this might be the game that everyone's trying to stack on for DFS this week. Would that make sense?
I don't know, man, because who are you bringing it back with is the problem.
I mean, Chris Carson should be active. So, I mean, like, you hit on the Seahawks.
No, you're right. You're right. This is definitely – I'm looking at the point totals right now because I haven't really started my sheet yet. The three games that look like the highest like ownership is going to be Buffalo, Arizona for number one. Number two is going to be Seattle Rams, and number three is Denver Raiders.
Denver Raiders. Okay, I don't know about that one, but I can definitely see the Buffalo, Arizona one as well. So, for sure. How about you? How you feeling? I mean, I say I don't know about the Denver Raiders game. Meanwhile, here you are with a Bronco yourself.
Yeah, man. The Bronco that I want to talk about this week is Drew Lock. I'm going to hype up Drew Lock this week. 40-plus passing attempts in 3 straight games. The Raiders are giving up 21.3 DK points per game, which is 6th worst on the season. And last week on Pub, I had a dude come on. His name is Skywalker DFS, my boy, where we went head-to-head, and he picked Drew Lock. And I was like, yeah, I definitely feel like Drew Lock is definitely popping for me at the bottom of the player pool for me. And, man, he showed that he had a rushing floor last week. He had 47 yards and a touchdown last week. And he showed he could take advantage of spotty defenses and being in a good spot. And he's done it for 3 straight weeks, man. 40-plus passing attempts in 3 straight games, man. That just shows the type of upside that he has. And I feel like this is going to be an old-fashioned type of shootout divisional game here. Vegas is kind of on it. It's the 3rd highest point total of the week. And there's definitely going to be a lot of points scored in this game. So start up your Jerry Jeudy's, your Noah Fants. Man, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Nelson Aguilar's of the world too.
As a Eagles fan, I'm sure that that's great for you to say. Now, we have some time. I want to bring this up. John Clark, you know who John Clark is, because around here, John Clark, we watch NBC here around the Philly area. John Clark is an NBC sports anchor. It's funny because John Clark posted on his Instagram, let me pull it up, exactly what he said. It was an interview with Doug Peterson, and they were trying to, like, yank it out of him. Like, Brett Favre has been saying, like, the Eagles should have kept Nick Foles instead of Carson Wentz. Like, Carson Wentz isn't the future, blah, blah, blah. And then, they kept asking Doug Peterson about it because Doug and Brett Favre are friends. They used to play on the same team and everything. And Doug Peterson said, I respect Brett's opinion. I haven't talked to Brett. He's entitled to his own opinion. John Clark said, Doug, on the 3rd time that they brought it up, Doug said, Carson's the guy that is going to carry this organization. Carson is our guy. Those aren't my words, bottom line, end of story. And it's funny because, like, saying it like that makes it sound like he was saying that, not his words that Carson is the guy, but Carson is the guy for the Eagles. But it's funny because you go back and you read the actual, the press conference, and he's saying, no, those aren't, those are Brett Favre's words. He's entitled to his own opinion. It's hard to trust the news sometimes, and especially the headlines that they try and hit you with. Be your own people. Supposed to be a Philly lover, and here he is trying to stir it up here in Philly. All right, just wanted to bring that up real quick. Thought it was fun. Anyway, I'm gonna hit the running back position here. It pains me to do this a little bit, but I think you could do worse than Ronald Jones this week. Tampa Bay plays Carolina. I shouldn't have to say much more than that. Carolina is one of the worst defenses against the run this season. They have been one of the worst defenses against the run going back to the beginning of last season. And Tampa Bay, they need to get back to basics. Like after a terrible loss last week to New Orleans on prime time in a game that should have been it should have been like a shootout between division rivals who are competing for the NFC Championship in a few months. And here we are instead, it's just a terrible effort by the Buccaneers, and the game's over before even halftime. So, like I said, gotta get back to basics here. This is a great matchup for Ronald Jones. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to play around here. I think Ronald Jones is a pretty solid start. How do you feel about him, Bill?
Oh man, you know how I feel about Ronald Jones, man. You can never really rely on his snap share from week to week because you never know when he's just gonna get pulled out of there.
I agree with that.
So, I feel like Leonard Fournette is obviously going to be the pass catching back. So who's to say? The Card. I mean, not. I didn't mean to say the Cardinals. The Panthers don't look decent here. They competed with the Chiefs last week, so maybe we have a game script where Leonard Fournette's out there and more of the passing down situations. I usually don't like to target a running back where I don't feel safe about the onslaught, about his snaps. And then who knows what this team is going to do in the red zone? They have so many different red zone options now.
Yeah, I will say, as far as last week with the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs had a team total of under 10 rushing attempts on the game, just because they chose not to run the football, which is really weird. In a matchup where, it looks good for the running back, you just choose not to run the football. But regardless, I agree with your points on Ronald Jones. He's not safe at all. But I mean, people are in desperate times here. Injuries, bye weeks, they're really hitting. Hopefully they're not hitting you so hard anymore. But I know the Chiefs are on bye this week. The Falcons are on bye. Those are two teams that have a lot of fantasy pieces. You might be forced to play someone like Ronald Jones. I think he's not the worst forced play out there. If that makes sense and that makes you feel good about starting Ronald Jones. Now, on the other hand, I'd much rather start your guy here. Should his, I don't know, the person he's behind be out, but it looks like he's going to be out. So I would much rather have your guy in this situation.
Oh yeah, the running back that I would like to talk about this week is my boy Duke Johnson. Man, I'm hype on Duke Johnson this week. David Johnson's in concussion protocol. This is Duke Johnson revenge spot. He's an underrated.
Oh, it is. I forgot about that.
Yeah, man, in a full bell cow role right here. I think people are sleeping on Duke Johnson, and people don't know how good he really is. We always talk about if Duke Johnson had a bell cow role. Well, we get one for 1 week right here. The only concern would be Watson's really not a check down type of QB. He's more of like a target the slot wide receiver and the tight end. So like the Jordan Atkins of the world and Randall Cobb of the world rather than the running back position. But I like Duke right here. I think he'll be more motivated than ever, and I think the team has no other choice besides to give Duke the ball here in a revenge spot. And if they get down here, you know how Duke Johnson gets down in the passing game. And I keep on saying the revenge spot narrative, but I think this one actually plays a big part because if anybody knows, Duke Johnson was drafted by the Browns, and the Browns always told him, like, yeah, we're going to clear out the running back position. We're going to get you the ball. And they never ended up eventually getting him the ball. Then they ended up drafting Nick Chubb, and then he wanted out of Cleveland. So it was kind of a real big. It was a nasty taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
That relationship at the end. So I definitely think the revenge spot narrative is viable here. It's different than like the Le'Veon Bell scenario where you get paid like $20 million to go somewhere and you're just chilling and you guys just don't clash. But this is like you got drafted here. You really like the situation, your teammates and all that. So I think it's going to be an emotional spot for just Duke Johnson himself.
Yeah. And Cleveland itself is not a bad matchup for running backs. I believe they're currently 19th against running backs on the season. So they are one of the better-ish matchups, but around league average about. As far as Duke Johnson, first of all, I'm in a redraft league where I'm playing the David Johnson owner who did not pick up Duke Johnson in his waivers, and I made him pay by picking up Duke Johnson today. Especially David Johnson did not practice today, so that really puts his week 10 status in doubt, which sucks too because David Johnson was my hype last week, and he really came out and did nothing. But, Bill, I want to throw this back real quick. Do you remember when we had that FFPC league together, and it was basically carried by Duke Johnson and his number 12 overall finish in that league, where he ended up getting like 80 catches on the season, but he really didn't rush the ball much, but he was so involved in the passing game where he was really our only viable running back.
Yeah, bro, I do remember that, man. It feels like I had so many experiences with Duke Johnson being the solely only RB on my team that I had. I don't think that's the reason why I said that's one of my concerns. I don't think it's like the Duke Johnson back from like 2016.
I think that was 2017.
Yeah, 2017, where he has a passing floor where it's just like, how are you not starting this guy? I think if he gets there this week, he gets it done with
on
the touchdown. Yeah.
He could definitely do it, though. I really believe in that. I'll go with a fellow Texan here for some hype. It's going to be Brandon Cooks. I don't think like I really just see Brandon Cooks as kind of like a must-start guy. At this point, at least, the Houston offense is just clicking so well right now. Brandon Cooks is playing really well. This is my kind of like circle back. Like, it's been a roller coaster to this point this season, but Bill remembers, because he was here, obviously, but for all the listeners who go way back to the beginning of the season, which was a hell of a long time ago, but I made Brandon Cooks one of my must-draft players. It looked absolutely terrible at the beginning of the season, but we're back, baby. Brandon Cooks over the last 4 games, 5 weeks in total, is the wide receiver 6 in points per game in PPR. He has been killing it. And it's not that he and Will Fuller can't succeed at the same time, because over that same span, Will Fuller is the wide receiver 13. I really think you can play both of these guys. And this Cleveland matchup, we kind of forget, but Cleveland is one of the best matchups to play your wide receivers against. I know the narrative is kind of like the slot PPR sort of guy, but Brandon Cooks has also been that kind of guy in recent weeks as well. So I really like Brandon Cooks here. I don't see a way that you're not starting him. It could go the same for Will Fuller, and I think you could spot start Randall Cobb if you really had to. But if I had to pick one of these guys to really play this week, it'd probably be Brandon Cooks. He's the one I have the most confidence in. How about you at the wide receiver position here, Bill?
Yeah, the wide receiver that I would like to go with this week is Christian Kirk. Man, he's been the model of consistency for the wide receivers for the Cardinals core this year. He has 22.2 fantasy points per game since week 6, and that ranks him in the top 10 for wide receivers and actually top 5 points per game wise. And while I think he will regress statistically later on in the season, I really like the matchup here. We know Hopkins will be guarded by Tre'Davious White, and that's always a tough matchup, leaving the wide receiver 2 here in a good matchup. I hinted at this earlier when we were talking about the highest point totals of the week. The highest point total of the week is 56, and it goes to the Bills-Cardinals game in Arizona. And I think there'll be touchdowns scored in this game here, and I think the easiest path to a touchdown here is for Christian Kirk. And that's the reason why I will be betting Christian Kirk anytime touchdown prop, and we'll definitely be playing him in some DFS lineups this week.
I definitely feel that. He's people love to say, like, oh, he can't score touchdowns every week. Well, it's not necessarily in the sense of, like, like, for example, Calvin Ridley. That's a guy, like, they make argument, oh, Calvin Ridley, he can't score touchdowns every week. His touchdowns are bound to regress. Well, he's just a great player, and he doesn't have the best coverage on him because Julio Jones is on the opposite side of the field. You can say the same thing for Christian Kirk. He's a great player. He's got a good quarterback supporting him in Kyler, and he's got the second best coverage on the field because DeAndre Hopkins is on the other side. So, yeah, things are going to open up for Christian Kirk. I don't see a reason why he can't continue on the pace that he's at. I mean, like, obviously, I think he has 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. I don't think he's going to keep doing that. But Kirk is a guy that I really think can be a really solid starter. I thought of him in that sense earlier on before the season started, and I think that similarly here. So, at the tight end position, this is more of a long-term seasonal value here to look towards, but I mean, maybe not seasonal because I don't know, but Mike Gesicki here for the Miami Dolphins. We didn't touch on it in the news because it's not too fantasy relevant, but Preston Williams put on IR today with a knee injury. If you remember, tore his ACL last season. I don't know if it's the same knee, but he's out at least 3 weeks. We don't know the timeline specifically on Preston Williams. But if you remember last season when Preston Williams went down, Mike Gesicki really took over in fantasy because the targets just became available to Mike Gesicki. You could say the same thing. Tua looked a lot better last week against the Arizona Cardinals. He was able to support Devontae Parker doing well. And this matchup, I think he's able to... I mean, the Chargers, I'm not really trying to play Gesicki just because I'm having some restraints. Like, I'd like to see it before I trust it. But at the same time, we saw what happened last year when Preston Williams go down and Mike Gesicki became a great tight end play because of his opportunity and his athleticism. I think the same thing can happen here with Preston Williams going down again. And if you're really desperate for a tight end and he's out on the waivers or something, he's a really good pickup and play. I doubt you're that desperate for a tight end and he's out on waivers, but if you're in a position where you're kind of choosing Hayden Hurst or Mike Gesicki, and I like Hayden Hurst, he's been doing a lot better recently, I would be kind of inclined to take the chance here on Gesicki because the Chargers are a pretty good matchup here. I think they can continue to score on Miami, whose defense has stepped it up a lot in recent weeks. So I think he's kind of like an upside play where Hayden Hurst is more so like a floor play with his receptions. And I like to try and hit that upside at the tight end position. So yeah, I think he's more of a long-term guy where if I have a great option, I'm not playing him this week. How about this, Bill? Mike Gesicki this week against the Chargers or Mark Andrews this week against the Patriots?
Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews is actually a tight end I would trade for, but the asking price is going to be a little bit too much.
I don't know, because Lamar's been really bad. Mark Andrews has been really bad when Lamar's been bad, which only makes sense, but still. I mean, that's an interesting point. You want to touch on it real quick?
What, on Mark Andrews?
Yeah. Just because, we're kind of talking about buying people today as well.
I just feel like people were kind of misreading Mark Andrews because last year, people don't remember, but Hayden Hurst was on that team. So The problem last year was more about his snap percentage. And this year, that's something that he's really improved on was his snap percentage. And he's being out there on the field and he's running routes. It's just the passing game for the Ravens haven't really bounced back. But I think all the Ravens receivers are going to bounce back eventually. And I would be buying them.
Give me 1 second because I've heard good things about Baltimore's playoff schedule. So I just want to pull it up real quick here. They play the Patriots this week, which is, concerning. Titans next week, which is pretty good. Then the Ravens play the Steelers. Obviously, you don't really want to play Andrews or really anyone then. But then after that, you get the Cowboys, Browns, Jaguars, and Giants. And if you have a Week 17 championship, they play the Bengals. So those are really, really good matchups. And I can understand the buying Mark Andrews. If I'm going to buy any Ravens receiver, it's going to be Mark Andrews. So I definitely feel that. How about you at the tight end position?
Yeah, the tight end position, I'm looking at a sleeper name. I'm going to keep the good times rolling with the tight end position sleeper names. A guy that I'm starting this week is Tyler Eifert. Jacksonville somewhat looked viable last week with behind the center. Viable from the aspect of just deep down the field passing. We didn't really see a lot of that from Minshew this year. I was a little bit disappointed in that. But playing from behind this week, I think the formula for a young QB in garbage time is to have secure targets. So the wide receiver 1, so that's Chark, and then the tight end, which would be Eifert, and then the running back position, which would be James Robinson. I feel like those players kind of get a boost from a young QB in garbage time because those are the easy type of targets. And I think the snap count should go up from last week. He was on the field for 55% of the time and a return from another countless amount of injuries that he had. But I think people are underestimating his upside. He had 5 targets last week for 4 catches and 48 yards. And I feel like we know what to expect from Eifert. If he can get that sneaky tight end touchdown there and get like 3 catches for like 38 yards and a touchdown, then he's going to have a good week.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because you hit on the Tyler Croft play last week. We were both hype about that on Twitter, but here we are again, shooting the same shot basically. But yeah, I definitely feel that. All right, how about our transition here from hype to hate? How do you feel about the quarterback position this week? Who are you hating on?
Yeah, the quarterback that I'm really hating on this week is who did I pick actually?
Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford. That's the quarterback that I'm hating on this week. He's just been out of my thought process. The reason why I picked Stafford here is because Kenny Galladay's been ruled out for is it 3 games this season?
I don't know that he's been ruled out, but I do know that he is very unlikely to play this week.
Yeah, and I just feel like you got to follow defensive pressure stats when it comes to defense. It's like the only thing that you can really project is like pressure on the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Washington rates pretty high on that. That's the reason why the line's so close. And I feel like Stafford here is just in a bad spot, and he just doesn't play well without Kenny Galladay because the field doesn't really open up here. How I feel about the receivers on the team, like Marvin Jones and stuff like that. Like, I guess you got to start Marvin Jones if you're in a situation where you're in a deep league and you have to play Marvin Jones and stuff like that. But I feel like the only person that really gets a boost with Galladay being out is TJ Hawkinson. He scored a touchdown in every game that Kenny Galladay's been out. But I think overall, besides this offense in the whole, the only person I'm really trusting is Hawkinson, and that's not really. I wouldn't really. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's just hope. No, I feel that. I feel that for sure. Yeah, I mean, in my matchup breakdown that I talked about, I said like I'm not really interested in playing Stafford. Washington's been great against the quarterback position, great against wide receivers. They're really just a good defense. We knew this was going to happen when they drafted Chase Young, and here we are. For me, at the quarterback position, I'm touching on Cam Newton. I mean, there's not too much to touch on. Last week, he wasn't great, but he came back to form a little bit against the Jets. I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Am I right in saying that? I didn't watch the game, but I do know he had at least 1 rushing touchdown and probably another touchdown at least somehow. Regardless, it's the Jets. It's not really like a great team. It's actually funny how the Patriots were like barely able to squeak away with this one when like former Patriots with Tom Brady would have like demolished them with no mercy. But here we are, Cam Newton. He was a good play last week against the terrible Jets. This week they play the Baltimore Ravens, and it's pretty much nope. I'm not doing that. I am not even going to test it. So I think the general consensus is that we're going to be out on Cam this week. So I was pretty basic at the quarterback position this week with a very obvious play and a very obvious bench. But regardless, I'm happy with my decisions, and I think I'll be right. Bill, running back position?
Yeah, the running back position Damn, dude, I think I just clicked out of that by accident. David Montgomery. I have some stats pulled up about him. I think he's making the list again and again. I feel like somebody picks him on our list every week. He's usually in fantasy, we want to follow the volume over the talent, but it's just not working out here in this situation. I feel like his limited production is just now concerning, where you just don't want to play him anymore. And he's had only one rushing touchdown this season, and he's only hit over 70 yards twice this season. And the Vikings are a team that you want to attack wide receiver position wise. So I'm more interested in Allen Robinson and a potential breakout Daryl Mooney type of game. Those are the type of guys that I'm going to be playing this week in DFS rather than playing David Montgomery. I said the Vikings defense is one that you want to attack wide receiver wise, running back wise. They only allow 4.2 yards per carry and a league low 5 rushing touchdowns per game this season. So I feel like I'm benching David Montgomery again.
Yeah. Just to say, I really don't think that a breakout game is possible for Darnell Mooney. He saw 11 targets last week and caught 5 of them and wasn't very fantasy relevant. And it's not
those aren't correct stats, Rob. Those are stats that you want to hear. Out of 55 catches this year that he's had, he hasn't dropped the ball yet.
No. Nothing on the talent of Darnell Mooney. He's a great player. Nick Foles is the problem. And it's not, Nick Foles is the best. Yeah, I was just going to say, Nick Foles is the best quarterback on the Chicago Bears team right now. He should be started. But they have a serious quarterback problem, and they have had a serious quarterback problem for the better half of forever, basically. So, yeah, like I said, nothing against Darnell Mooney. If they had a good quarterback in there, I would be hammering Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney would probably be like a mainstay in the fantasy community, close to a must-start weekly, if they had a good quarterback who could actually support that. But, here we are, sadly. I wanted to ask you, though, should the Bears move on from David Montgomery? Like, he's obviously not
Is he for
doing much.
Season?
No, he's still under contract for 2 more years, the rookie contract. But so
keep him under contract for a couple more years and figure out the situation. But I think upcomingly, when his contract is up and he asks for that second contract, fuck no, not Montgomery.
I don't know. I think it's a mixture of like him and the quarterback play, and the play calling. Like it's a terrible situation, not just for him, but like entire Bears team. But I could touch on it for too long. I don't want to touch on it anymore. I'm gonna head into my running back here, Josh Jacobs for the Las Vegas Raiders this week. You mentioned they play the Denver Broncos in a game that is projected by Vegas to be the 3rd highest point total. And I feel that. I can definitely see that happening. But the Denver Broncos have a funnel defense where they stop you from running the football efficiently and they make you throw the football. Derek Carr has shown over the past basically this whole season, that he can get it done through the air when it's needed. Josh Jacobs has been technically Josh Jacobs is the RB10 on the season, but outside of week 1, Josh Jacobs has really not been like a fantasy player that you have been excited to own and play week in and week out. I'm looking this up right now, where if you take week 1 away, Josh Jacobs is the RB19 overall in the season. That is give or take, we'll say, because of points per game. But guys like Jerick McKinnon are technically over him, not in points per game. DeAndre Swift, for example, Darrell Henderson, guys that are over Josh Jacobs. David Montgomery, someone we just mentioned. He's technically scoring more points per game than Josh Jacobs. If you take away the one explosion game that he's really had, and I don't see an explosion game coming here. He's not very involved in the receiving game like we hoped he was going to be. I don't know. I'd kind of be benching Josh Jacobs if I had a nice option, if I had a nice pivot. Luckily, I had really just one share of Jacobs, and I traded him away in my one redraft league, so now I have no shares. But this was kind of my fear pre-season with Josh Jacobs, and then I started to sort of buy into the fact of maybe he will get a decent amount of receptions. Maybe they will involve him in the receiving game. Nope, here we are. Jalen, I don't know why, but everyone loves calling him Richard now. Jalen Richard and Devontae Booker are two involved in the receiving game. Darren Waller is insanely good, obviously, but you see the come up of Nelson Aguilar. They still have Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow. Like, he's just not involved in the receiving game. I didn't think he was going to be at first. I started to doubt myself. Here I am. And I don't think you can count on him in this game. You're going to have to count on touchdowns. And I feel like that's just going to be hard to come by for Josh Jacobs. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think who the Raiders played this week again?
Broncos.
The Broncos, yeah. I talked about that earlier in the episode. I don't know why I just had a blank of a moment. But I don't know, Rob. I feel like there's going to be a lot of points scored in the game. But
I agree with that.
Talking about usage-wise when it comes to Josh Jacobs, because he just seems like he just can't get on the board when it comes for touchdowns, besides last week. So I see what you're saying.
He has 2 weeks where combined he's scored 5 touchdowns. And outside of that, on the season, he scored 1. So it's, it's really hit or miss with Josh Jacobs. And, like I said, Denver would rather you pass the football on them than run it on them.
Yeah.
And, I think Derek Carr, I think Nelson Aguilar, like you mentioned, Darren Waller, they're smash plays this week. But not really Josh Jacobs. Not very interested this week, personally. How about you at the wide receiver position here?
The wide receiver position, I'm looking to fade Mike Evans, man. I don't have a lot of confidence in Mike Evans scoring anymore, and I feel like that's where a lot of his value has came from this season. And with Antonio Brown there, that's just another target for the red zone. And I think this offense looked really out of sync last week. I don't know why, and I think that they'll bounce back. And I usually fade the noise when it comes to like fading against the public and what the public opinions are and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to fade Tampa Bay here against the Panthers. Like you said earlier, this is more of like a running back spot rather than a wide receiver spot.
Yeah. And, like you said, they have a ton of red zone weapons. Antonio Brown being there now, Rob Gronkowski really establishing himself. Ronald Jones could run it in. Hell, Tom Brady could even sneak it in if they're that close. So there's options for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. Mike Evans is a really good player, but you can only support so many fantasy options in one offense. So, yeah, for sure. For me, at the wide receiver position, I'm hating on Mike Williams this week, another Mike. Not on the talent of Mike Williams, but the Miami Dolphins matchup. I mentioned it earlier. Their defense is starting to really take it up a notch. Mike Williams is the downfield threat where I really feel like he'll be the one that's shadowed by Xavier Howard. Even if he's not, he's going to get Byron Jones anyway, so it's not that much better. You look at the Miami Dolphins on the season, they're not a terrible matchup for wide receivers, but in recent weeks is when they've really started to lock down, like DeAndre Hopkins last week, 6 total fantasy points in PPR leagues. Christian Kirk came through with a few touchdowns, and you could kind of have that same, mentality if what's his name, Keenan Allen is the one who's seeing the main, coverage, which very well could happen. But I don't know, just something telling me like to kind of fade Mike Williams this week, and not a situation where I think like they'll be low scoring, but I think Keenan Allen is the one that's going to have the more success through the air, honestly. Herbert has just been flooding Keenan Allen with targets. He's been spot on his deep throws to Mike Williams, who's a great deep ball receiver. I think he's got a lot of potential long term here, especially with Herbert. It's just something about this week. Am I stupid for this pick, Bill?
No, man. Actually, I played the Express late last week for DFS. Chris was telling me about it. Told me I should play it, so I played it. And one of the guys that I played was Gooten, and that was more of like an indictment on Mike Williams, because I feel like him and Gooten, I feel like Gooten's just like a poor man's Mike Williams. You feel me?
Yeah, I feel he is for sure. This week, only I have a tight end because Billy didn't hate any tight ends. But for me, I'm hating on Jonnu Smith. They play the Indianapolis Colts tomorrow night. The Colts have a really great defense. I don't know exactly where they rank. I can look that up real quick. But I know they're very good against the tight end position. And Jonnu is just, like, I don't know what's up with Jonnu, but he came through later on last week by catching a touchdown, but he has just not been what he was at the start of the season. And, that movie, Get Out, it's just not the best situation. By the way, the Indianapolis Colts are the number one team at defending the tight end position this season. So, I'm not very interested in Jonnu Smith so far, or so for this matchup. If I can get that out, I'd much rather play Trey Burton in the same matchup, and that's saying a lot.
So I got a question for you here. A little bit off topic.
That's fine.
For the Colts wide receivers, would you rather play Marcus Johnson or Michael Pittman? Because I'm looking at since we were talking about this game here, I'm looking at some of the player props for tomorrow night, and I want to get this out there for the people. And I think you're definitely right. There's some value. I think as soon as we get done this podcast, I'm probably going to start betting these Trey Burton props, because I think tomorrow, when there's confirmed news that Jack Doyle isn't playing, that they're going to change these Trey Burton
props. It's been confirmed now, by the way.
Yeah, it's been confirmed, but I'm saying the sports books haven't really yet. Right now, I'm probably going to bet over 24.5 receiving yards at minus 112, and I'll probably bet the over 2.5 receptions at minus 124. I just want to throw those two quick ones in there. But where do you feel about this wide receiver position? Because right now, both of their yard props look identical, but more money's poured in on obviously the rookie over the plus money vet. But it's kind of reminds me of the situation Monday night with Brashad Perryman and Denzel Mims.
Yeah.
I smashed the Perryman props, and it turned out that was the way to go. I didn't expect a 2-touchdown game from him. But how do you feel about this one? Because I kind of want to start rookie.
I'm more on the Pittman side. I'm not like super excited for either of them. Just kind of looking back, Pittman's played 2 games since coming back from IR. The first game, he wasn't really involved. 1 for 6. So I'll kind of throw that away. That's his first game back. Last week against the Ravens, pretty tough matchup. 4 for 56. So he was decently involved last week and the week before. Marcus Johnson, 2 for 39 the week before, 2 for 14 last week. He also had a forced fumble. Okay, don't know how that happened, but regardless, I'd probably take Pittman. He's the one to me that has some more upside. And I would think as the season goes along, they're only going to try to get him more involved. T.Y. Hilton, does he play? I think that makes a difference too.
I think T.Y. plays, but I just don't think he's relevant anymore.
He's not relevant. He's not relevant at all.
But if T.Y. is inactive, then then this is a whole entire different situation scenario.
That's
But I got Ty playing tomorrow, but he's just like so low for average depth of target that it just sucked away all of his value. I feel like.
Yeah. Not from a like I'd be playing T.Y. Hilton sort of perspective, but more from a T.Y. Hilton takes targets away from Pittman and Johnson, Pascal, Burton, other options where like I feel lessly about them if Hilton is playing. Hilton was out last week, so maybe Pittman was kind of that wide receiver 1, 4 for 56 in a tougher matchup. I don't know. I think I'd go with Pittman though. Definitely go with Pittman actually. You could even see that sort of transition where like Ty has not been getting it done, and Pittman was slightly not bad last week in a tough matchup. So maybe they sort of make that transition where Pittman's the main guy now if he's ready for it. We'll have to see. Before we head on out of here, have our Survivor, I don't know, not series, but Survivor picks on the season to make still in this. But Bill, before we head on out, share everything you want to share to this or for the rest of the week with the audience.
Yeah, man. The Survivor pick here, really ugly, but it's an actual bet that I'm making this week. I'll just talk about it betting perspective wise, so you can get an idea of why I'm betting it also as well.
Yeah.
Betting the Browns -3 here. I think the Texans kind of were in a big favorite spot last week, and I felt like that game was more like closer towards a pick 'em. If I kind of stayed away from the game because I didn't know what to expect out of Luton, but the money side was definitely the Jacksonville and the points. But I feel like there's no way that the Browns shouldn't be like a -4.5 or 5.5 favorite against here. I feel like Houston just hasn't really impressed me this year, and I feel like Cleveland pulls out this game in an ugly type of fashion, probably like a low play per game type of game. So maybe not a type of game that you want to stack for DFS wise, but I feel like this is a good one-off type of game here. Like if you want to pick like Brandon Cooks or like Will Fuller, or like Kareem Hunt, blah blah blah, and Duke Johnson. So I know I like Duke Johnson. I talked about him earlier here, but that's the reason why I kind of like Duke Johnson is because I think the Browns kind of get up here.
And you've seen the Browns beat bad teams so far this year. Where they've really struggled is playing good teams, and Houston is not a good team. So I like the Browns pick. They would have been my pick if the team that I have picked here wasn't available to me. But the New Orleans Saints, we just saw them demolish the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on national television last week. This could be a trap game here, going up against the San Francisco 49ers where, the 49ers, I don't know, like, through all their injuries, they're still a pretty good team. Like, their defense is still pretty solid. Their offense is, like, I'm not going to say, like, clicking, because it's obviously not. They got beat bad by the Packers last week. But I feel like this is a situation where the Saints, you want to be a competing team in the NFC, then you have to be able to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And on paper, 9-point favorites here, they're supposed to beat the 49ers. So, I'll take them here. They're easily the best team we have left, too. Like, we were going down the list. You see the list of used teams there. It's stacking up. For those of you looking on Twitter and YouTube, you can see. But too many to just name quickly. Bill, 7-2 on the season. Me 6-3. So we're both pretty close. So hopefully I can narrow that gap this week. Let's go Houston. Though I think Cleveland wins. But anyway, Follow me on Twitter at FantasyForceFB. Follow Billy at Getting Bills. Follow the show at Dynasty Force Pod. Check us out on YouTube, Dynasty Force Podcast. And thanks again for tuning in. Hope you all have a great fantasy weekend. As always, you can message us with any questions that you may have. Thanks so much. And we're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern to help make fantasy great again for you.